time for a tale of 12 old men, one of whom will fail to impress his peers cause of a team so stale. It's the wrong way roundabouts. It's the wrong way roundabouts.
We are live, sir. How are you this morning, Mr. Artz?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I got no complaints yet. It's only we're recording pretty early on a Sunday morning. It is now 9:30. We had intended to start at 9, but then I was putzing around with the soundboards and all the setup. So my apologies for the delay, sir.
Oh, no worries. I felt like I was driving it with my pursuit of other clips and gave me a minute to get familiar with today's topics. So all good.
It's changed a bit since the last time you've been in here. A couple new additions. Do you like your side tables over there?
Yes.
There's finally a place to put your drink.
Very convenient.
That was probably the number one piece of feedback I received from guests is like, what the hell am I supposed to do with my drink? Just hold it in my hands like an animal? Like there's nowhere to put it down here. So I've addressed that.
Very well.
And now we got these nice chairs too. They swivel, but they don't move. That was another piece of feedback. Mr. Matt Frankel was complaining about the chairs not moving. So maybe if the money starts rolling in, we can address that next with fancier chairs.
All right. It's a good lead in for your sponsors. I see we picked up yet a third. So
we do have a third sponsor. Did you get a chance to listen to our latest sponsor?
I did.
Yeah. So you know that's Kim's brother, Kevin Fox.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to go out of order then, since Kevin came up naturally here. We'll start with Kevin's segment. This is how we'll break it up. I'll do Kevin. You can do Matt's exterior washing, and then we'll swing back. We'll do a dual plug for Platinum Property over there.
All right. Since the last time I was here, we used Matt's power washing. So
all right. Well,
so
that's
good.
Perfect then.
Yeah.
So Kevin Fox from Foxy Vacations, he was on the show last week. Thought he did a good job. Sounds like a fun job. I'm sure it's a lot more work than I'm giving it credit for, having to manage these properties. Actually, based on my conversations with Todd early, the last thing I would ever want to do is manage properties. That sounds like a real pain in the ass. So God bless you, Kevin, for doing that and doing that well. But Kevin Fox is the CEO of Foxy Vacations. He was on the show last week. Appreciate you coming on. His website is foxyvacations.com. You can email them, info@foxyvacations.com. You can also find him on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is search for Foxy Vacations in the search bar at the top there. And then on Instagram, he is Foxy Vacations CEO. And if you check out his Instagram, you'll see the Farm It or Flip It series that he's doing. Although, Kevin, if you're listening, I'm disappointed. I don't see any new episodes. I did see a behind the scenes video, which I enjoyed, but I'm looking for more Farm It or Flip It episodes there, sir. So please add those. Did you check out any of Kevin's videos?
I did not check them out this week. I was traveling, so didn't really have a chance to dip into that. Do we dare tell the listeners that I think they've now missed the promotional opportunity that they had. They had the contest going for the discount on the rates. Did you take advantage of that?
They did. No, I already have plans for September. Right. I'm going to England.
Yes.
So I was not able to take advantage of it. But Kevin mentioned that they had a new property, this Floribama Shore one. Now, that was on Instagram as well. He had a video of the Floribama Shore mansion. I feel like my attempt at a name, Misdemeanor Manor, now is no longer appropriate. It's very like high end. I don't know. When I heard the portmanteau of Floribama, I guess the imagery that was in my mind is very different than what the property actually is. It's super, super nice. Very high-end property, so it's classier. You're not going to get misdemeanors there. If you get misdemeanors on the beach on your spring break and fall break trips, you can't afford to stay in this place, is my guess.
Gotcha. So it's more on a felony line.
Yeah, like a white-collar felony, though, like embezzlement.
Cigarette boats and low bricks of cocaine.
Yeah. No, okay. Those guys, I think, could afford it.
Gotcha.
I don't know about the logistics of shipping in your cocaine. I don't know. I guess there's, you're at the Gulf of America right there. That's kind of a straight shot.
I mean, yeah, I don't know that would be any different. You'd have to come up a little bit around the borders with Florida, but you think about all the parachute drops that used to be done on the south end of Miami with them scooting out there and scooping it up out of the water.
Yeah, parachute drops. They had submarines. Do you ever see any of those documentaries? about the Colombian kingpin. I can't remember what his name is now. He's come up before. I always forget his name. But he had submarines that he would use. I don't know if they were ever, like, if they made it to full production. But he was always innovating.
Yes.
That cartel leader.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
Innovate or die. That's
I think he died. But he was in it. I mean, I got to credit his ingenuity. But anyway, enough about the Floribama cocaine runs. That's not going to happen in the Foxy Vacations Floribama mansion. It's far too classy for that.
awesome.
But if you are looking for a vacation in the Florida area, reach out to Kevin Fox at foxyvacations.com. Cool dude. He's got a lot of nice properties on there. Check him out on Instagram too. He's got some entertaining Instagram content. Filmed very well. You can check out his behind the scenes video as well. But Kevin Fox, Foxy Vacations. So you've used Matt's pressure washing or Matt's exterior washing.
I have.
Tell us about
multiple
that.
times. So he was actually, I was hoping for some type of rate discount for the neighborhood, my linkage to this show, but that didn't happen, which is fine. Nobody's running these businesses with crosses on the front of them. They're not in it for the good Samaritan work. So, but yeah, Matt's Exterior Washing. This episode is brought to you by Matt's Exterior Washing. They are proudly serving Cumming, Alpharetta, and the surrounding areas.
Including Gainesville.
We were waiting.
You know, my wife told me, my wife says she's a devoted listener to the Wrong Way Roundabouts. And she gives me feedback in the shows, and she says I need to chill out with the Gainesville shit talking. I don't know anybody from Gainesville. I'm not worried about it. But anyway, this is for you, babe. I'm pulling back.
I was mentioning to Dana the dilemma that we're having trying to align our series guest as the email exchanges that I was giving you this week, trying not to talk them off before they ever actually, in case they listen before they make a decision. And she goes, John better hope he doesn't live in Gainesville. Yeah. Anyway, back to Matt's Exterior Washing. They're the top rated choice for pressure washing. I've used their services. I can't recommend them enough. Whether you're prepping your home for summer, now fall, or you just want to boost your curb appeal, get in touch and visit Matt's Exterior Washing. That's all one word, Matt's Exterior Washing.com. Call or text at 770-910-4423.
And you know he's good if you still purchase the services without the discount of having been in the neighborhood. That's just because you like the quality of his work.
Yeah, this is my third go around using their services, so highly recommend it. And look, I'm not trying to challenge our other faithful sponsors, but he's the only one I know that is also the official power washing company of the Atlanta Braves.
Wait, is that a true story?
It is a true story.
How the hell did he become the official power washing company of the Atlanta Braves?
I'm sure he paid sponsorship fees for that.
Man, this is why he can't afford to give us any discounts.
Could be.
Who do you think's driving more traffic? The Atlanta Braves sponsorship?
Well, I mean, I think with our reaching appeal at least through Thorngate.
That's true.
So
Man.
I was driving by. So I got a nice letter from the HOA telling me that my house is very unkept. So there were multiple things that I needed to take care of for the last month. And one of them rubbed me really the wrong way. Like
one of them? For our listeners that are not familiar with Tim Artz's house, I would say it's like the shining city on the hill of Thorngate. Your yard, your house, your entire property is always immaculate every time. And I do mean literally every time I pass by it. That shocks me that you got any sort of violation. 3.
So, and one of them was that the house needed to be power washed. And I'm like, and again, hey, I appreciate what they're trying to do and everything else, but that, when something like that happens, the natural thing is I'm driving out Mystic Ridge and I'm looking at how I'm like, hey, they better go. They better. And I drove by one day and Teague was washing the side of his house, power washing it himself, which is ridiculous, John. There's Matt's power washing, Matt's exterior washing.
Yeah, he's not going to give you a discount though. But anyway. All right. So Matt's exterior washing. Good job there, Matt. Oh, man, official sponsor, power washing sponsor of the Braves. That's crazy. That's why we're not getting discounts anymore. He's hit the big time.
So I haven't seen it during the telecast, but it's very frequent when you listen on the radio broadcast.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, I'm not going to get into his business, but that can't be cheap.
No. Yeah, he must be killing it.
So anyway.
Next time we have him on the show, he's going to have like a whole entourage.
Yeah.
Like
or at least free Braves gear for everybody.
Yeah. All right. And our final sponsor of the show, Todd Early over there at Platinum Property. The Early brothers. There's two of them. Let me pull up the slide here so I have their contact information. And I'll tell you guys, here's some behind the scenes of the podcast. For some of these ad reads, we actually have like content in there. Like Matt from Matt's Exterior Washing. He's a pro. He sent us like a read for us to do. So that's what Tim was doing. And he was riffing on it a little bit, obviously with some personal information. And some don't. So like Kevin Fox did not send us information to read, but we obviously mentioned the socials and the ways to contact them. For Platinum Property, Todd came in, did an excellent, he ran a whole show with us. Loved hanging out with Todd. And we're going to see Todd again soon for the draft party. But my notes for Platinum Property, aside from the contact information, is there's a bullet that says John to make some shit up. So,
so here we go.
So we're at that part of the show. But you can contact them at platinumrentalproperty.com. That is their website. And as Todd has said in the past, you can just show up. You can show up at his haunted house at 212 Kelly Mill Road, and you can kick the front door in and you can demand to see Todd Early. It's that sort of show over there. So if you want to go see Todd in person, 212 Kelly Mill Road. You can also call this number. I don't know if this is Todd's number. I hope it's not. 678-710-8056. Call that. Somebody adjacent to Platinum Property will answer that phone, and they'll take care of any issues you have. There's customer service at platinumrentalproperty.com. But again, Platinum Property, all kidding aside, fantastic group of people. Everyone I've spoke to over there, real professionals. They know Georgia property law. They know how to manage your properties for you. They've got hundreds of them, and they're all local to Georgia, so they understand the rental processes here, the paperwork involved. They've got a wide network of professionals that can take care of your property for you. So if you're looking to rent your property out, or if you're a renter looking for a property, hit them up, platinumrentalproperty.com, and ask for Todd. The house is haunted. You can go there, but the house is haunted. Don't go there at night, especially around the witching hour. Speaking of this, so Tim, you've probably heard me mention that I want to do like a seance special at Platinum Property. So I'm looking around for ideas on the internet for I want to do it for real, right? I want to treat it somewhat seriously. So how do these seances typically work? Is a Ouija board complete bullshit, or is that like a tool of the medium sort of thing? So I've been watching these documentaries, and one is on Enfield. It was in Enfield, London, and it was about a poltergeist case that was out there. And then there's another one called the Philip Experiment. Two very different ones. And I'll get to the summary here at the end. I'm like kind of scared shitless. And I don't believe in ghosts. That's not something that I believe in. But now I'm starting to wonder if there's some sort of like telekinesis, weird psychosomatic sort of aspect to that is going to like break my brain if I do it anyway. And you can go on YouTube and you can look up the Enfield poltergeist, or you can go up on YouTube and look up the Philip Experiment. But the gist of it is that they don't really believe that there's a haunting, a ghost, I guess it would be supernatural, but beyond the grave sort of influence. They think it's highly stressed out humans that are manifesting apparitions and interactions with their environment. So you put me in a dark basement at 2:00 in the morning on Halloween in a haunted property that's got some history. You should ask Todd about that. If you go to 212 Kelly Mill Road, ask about the history of that area. And I'm worried that I'm going to have like a Professor X style psychotic breakdown and start levitating chairs and tables in that basement. So I am a little concerned now, to tell you the truth, even though I don't believe in ghosts.
That's deep. I will tell you that I've had some experiences. My fraternity house was called the Mansion on the Hill. There was, over the course of the years from the time it was built to when I actually was living in the house, there were 4 different people that died at deaths in that house. And I would tell you that house was haunted. Like there were so many things that would happen that you couldn't explain. Not like Ouija boards being thrown away and then showing back up in the bedroom and then convincingly thrown away again and then showing back up in the bedroom. But there was just enough unexplained, on top of the fact that, the house was 100 years old in the 80s. So all kinds of creaks and rattles and things like that. But just close enough experience with it that I think that there's things.
Well, all right, Tim, I'm gonna force you to dig here. Let's go back to the fraternity house. Give us one incident. If you can think of one specific time in that fraternity house where you're like, all is definitely not as it seems. There's no explaining that. What was it? What happened in this fraternity house?
Probably the most notable event was we were also doing a Ouija board thing. Seems to be pretty common with 20-year-olds.
High school, college kids, yeah.
Yeah. So the way the house set up, you came in, the front door entered into a grand foyer that went all 3 stories up. And then there was a library off of that parlor, former room on one side, library on the other. And we were in the library at a table doing a Ouija board, and we were trying to summon the ghost of Walter Cronkite, who was an alum of my fraternity. I know. So,
I'm composed now. It caught me off guard with Walter Cronkite.
Well, he was an alum of the fraternity. So as we were doing that, one of the kids got kind of mouthy and was like, this is stupid and you can't really contact everything. Then we tried to shift to see about the spirits in the house. Because as I said, there were 4 different people had died in the house. One of them kind of very weird circumstances. So we shift from Walter, because we're not having any luck there, to the spirits of the house. Then one of the guys is like, this is just complete garbage. This doesn't work. There's no hauntings. There's no ghosts or everything else like that. Completely unexplained. You couldn't have done this much damage with a minor earthquake. Everything in the kitchen comes out. Dishes, pots, pans, anything that was in a cabinet, now on the floor of the kitchen.
Now that's like a scene from the movie Poltergeist.
Correct.
Yeah. I wouldn't have stayed in that house after that, Tim. I would have, and I'm not even kidding, I would have immediately moved out.
And we actually had a guy that, had signed his lease for the school year, and 3 weeks later was like, this house is off. I can't stay here.
So where do you fall on the philosophical spectrum? Ghosts, spirits, apparitions from beyond, some sort of psychokinesis emanating from the human's present?
I don't think that they're self-developed. I actually think that there's a third dimension working around us at all times.
There's 3 dimensions in this dimension, Tim.
Well, a 4th dimension. Sorry.
There you go.
Yes, there are 3 dimensions. Dropping in a mark there for me, except I know the rules.
Yeah, we're leaving that one in.
Yep. Anyway, no, I genuinely believe that there is things greater than we can explain.
Oh, I agree with you. I totally agree with you that there's something more to it. And I don't know if it's religious or spiritual in nature. It very well could be. If it's scientific and physics-wise in terms of multiple dimensions and multiple realities. But I agree with you that there's plenty of unexplained, knowledge, right, that we don't quite grasp that's out there. I don't know that we'll ever figure it out, but there's been too many, I'll say, instances of just completely unexplainable phenomena. I mean, that right there, if you're sitting in a room with a bunch of college kids and shit in your kitchen is flying off the shelves, I mean, yeah, I suppose you could get into some sort of like localized earthquake scenario. Like that's what they would tell you.
Yeah, the issue with that is like going through my bedroom was up to the right. Nothing disturbed in the room. Yeah. I mean, nobody reported anything other than, so I don't think you're going to have an earthquake that centralized.
Oh, I would agree. But again, that's what big science would tell you.
Well,
that was a localized earthquake.
Potential. Yep.
So would you want to join me in Platinum Property at 2:00 in the morning on Halloween for a seance?
I will tell you that I would be very, very interested in that. I actually think that I'm at a Packers game that weekend. That's that would be the challenge. But if the Packers game doesn't come to fruition, because I've had a whole bunch of swing and misses lately with thinking I'm going to a sporting event like the Texas-Ohio State game, and then my customer backs out at the last minute.
So keep me in the loop on this Packers game. If you end up not going to the Packers game and you're interested in the seance, I mean, I'm for real. I'll do this, but I will say that now I'm more scared about it.
Well, that was my intent.
Well, I mean, you're gonna carry some spiritual residue with you. I'm gonna be pre-freaked out by the Enfield poltergeist and the Philip experiment. Oh, actually, since I mentioned it, I'm gonna go into 60 seconds of detail on the Philip experiment because that was an interesting one, and this gets more into my question about whether or not these are human-driven phenomena or actual spiritual phenomena. So, Enfield poltergeist, straightforward poltergeist movie, The Exorcist. It's. I'm just going to say that's your typical haunting. It's scary, and it was witnessed by dozens of different people, and lots of the phenomena was recorded. So it's a very interesting case, but fairly traditional. The Philip experiment, this was done, I think, in Canada in the 70s, I think it was. And the reason that this is unique is that it was a researcher, using that term loosely, and his aim was to see that if he could create a ghost or a spirit. So he got together with a group of people, and I think the only requirement that he had was that none of them could claim to be mediums or psychics or have any sort of spiritual or supernatural powers. They had to just be normal people. So like one was a teacher, he was a scientist. I want to say another guy was like a carpenter. They were just everymen sort of people that joined it. And they had to specifically not be mediums. And they all met beforehand and agreed, this was open knowledge, that they were going to make up a ghost. So they made up a ghost, a guy named Philip Aylesford was the name of the ghost, hence the Philip experiment. So they make up a ghost named Philip Aylesford. This guy never existed. They all knew he didn't exist and acknowledged that he did not exist. But they created a backstory for Philip. And the backstory was that Philip was married, but he was having an affair with another girl, and the wife found out about the affair, and she threw herself out of a castle tower and killed herself. And then Philip was, consumed by guilt, and then he ends up killing himself later as well. So this whole fake backstory that, again, all the participants knew was completely made up. So they made up the backstory. They drew pictures of him. Like I said, one of the participants was an artist. So they had a portrait of Philip and this backstory, and they made him as real as they could to them with the full understanding that it was not a real person. This was not a real story. There was no real background there. And then they started having seances where they attempted to contact this fake person with this tragic fake backstory. And like Enfield poltergeist, like many of these things, they all say that they had experiences where tables were moving, chairs were moving, knockings were happening, whisperings happening in their ears, those sorts of things. And this one has much less, I'll say, physical evidence. If you look up the Enfield poltergeist stuff, there's plenty of video and sound and audio where some really weird shit was recorded. I did look into the Philip one. There wasn't nearly as much to it, but there is the word, for what that's worth, of these people that were involved with it, and some limited kind of audio evidence of what they saw. But I thought that was kind of an interesting take on it. They wanted to see if they could create the spirit, create the problem. So that's kind of got me thinking, like, all right, so if this is a situation where humans are manifesting this activity or this behavior, could that end up happening to me in Todd's literal basement?
That's interesting. I first of all, I will go check it out. I couldn't even use our sound clip for that one because I was on the edge of my seat listening. No, I mean, I hadn't really thought about, I had not ever been introduced to the concept that maybe we're materializing this in our own heads because of that. So on the backstory of what you were just sharing, though, I want to make sure that I'm aligned or understand it. So the only people that participated in the seance were people that knew it was 100% false.
100%. Only participants were people that knew the whole story, that it was all fake, that they collectively made this individual up.
I thought that you were, okay. I thought that they were bringing in then additional people to do this, and they were giving them the backstory. So the fact that they could make this kind of materialize in some form or another, and they all knew it was fake. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's an interesting, it was like a 40-minute documentary that I found on YouTube, and it's like the most 80s looking documentary, complete with like the VHS wavy lines at the beginning of the YouTube video on there. I'll send it over to you because it was pretty interesting stuff. But all right, we're still talking about Todd Early at Platinum Property in the haunted basement.
And if you stop by, if a little known fact, if you kick him a $20 bill, he'll take you on a 15-minute ride in the Tesla truck.
Yeah, that's a beautiful car. I love that car. And we're doing it sounds like it's official now. We're going to do our draft party at Platinum Property.
Good.
So you'll get a chance to check it out on whenever the hell that is. August 31st, 30th.
I will be there now. Originally, I wasn't going to be there. I was doing anything to get out of the combine, by the way, but that's the same weekend that thought I was going to Columbus for the Texas game.
I'm not even sure this combine is happening at this point. I know you don't keep up with the chat because it's completely over the top, but I made an honest attempt at trying to finalize some sort of combine events the other day. And it's one of those things where you make a suggestion and it just spurs other people to make suggestions and nobody agrees on anything. So I have no idea what we're doing for the combine.
Okay.
I do like the idea of spelling. I want to introduce more mental activities because of my limited athletic prowess.
I'm with you. I don't know what's going to happen either, but I'm just hoping to not be, unfortunately, Tim again. I was going to accept it if I didn't show up to it. At least I had a good excuse because I was sitting there cheering on my beloved Buckeyes. But
so I will say, knowing that you don't keep up with the chat, are you aware that there are some rule changes in the league this year?
Yes. Well, and it was well covered on the last episode. My favorite episode, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to do a tie-in to the wokeness here in a few minutes. I was going to describe the perfect. I was going to describe the perfect evening that I had last night.
All right, so moving on, Platinum Property. Todd, we'll see you in a couple weeks here for the draft party. But if you guys have rental property needs, if you're looking to rent, or if you're looking to put your place up to be managed, contact Todd early over there at Platinum Property. Get into the meat and potatoes of the show here, Tim. School is back. I guess you don't really care, right? Because Zach had already moved out of the house, so it doesn't impact you too much directly.
It does not impact me too much.
Now, Zach, he's not done with school, though. He's still in college, right?
Yes.
So how is he liking going back to school?
Fine. Yeah. I mean, he has found his forever job with Grayson. So he's a lot more concentrated on how he can progress through that organization.
What the hell is Grayson?
It's a high-end clothing.
Oh, okay.
Golf apparel and things like that.
All right. Where is Zach going to school at?
Kaiser University.
Kaiser University. Is he did he get any chance to be the cameraman for these sorority rush videos out there?
No fraternities or sororities on that campus, so he's missing out.
He's just watching on TikTok like the rest of us.
Yes.
Gotta say, America's back, Tim.
For sure. For sure.
The sorority rush videos are something else, man. I know my kids are depressed about returning to school. Alex is in high school. He goes to Central. Does Zach go to Central?
He went to Central, yeah.
Okay. Apparently it's a large campus. That's Alex's number one complaint is just the size of the campus and trying to get from class to class.
Yeah. Look, I was never always convinced that it was a problem with the school system, but I can tell you that Zach accumulated a number of tardies over his 4 years there.
So there are a few new things about school this year, Tim. This will be different from when Zach was in high school, but no phones. They're banned this year. They can only have them at lunch, which I was reading an article about this in Forsyth News, and I thought this was a funny little side effect of them not having phones. Some Forsyth County school manager was being interviewed by the Forsyth News to get early reports on the distraction-free learning environment, which is what they're calling this no phone policy, distraction-free learning. And he's like, it's great. You see kids walking around. They're actually talking to each other in the halls. And even at lunch, where the high school kids at least are allowed to have their phones, he's like, we see a significant step down in kids using their phone at lunch because nobody was texting all morning. Nobody was putting up reels or TikToks or anything. So there's no content for them to look at. So even when they're allowed to have their phones, they're interacting with each other more. And, we couldn't be more thrilled was the main gist of the message, that this is already going very well. But there were two quotes in the article that made me laugh. One is that vending machine sales are down significantly. And the reason for that is they didn't account for the fact that all these kids were using Apple Pay or Google Pay, whatever the Android equivalent is, to get their sodas and snacks from the vending machines. So now that they don't have their phones on them, they can't buy the state-sponsored junk food on there. So vending machine sales are tanking. So we're not going to have any vending machine companies sponsoring the podcast. And then the other one, and I guess this is good. I should tread carefully here because this is a serious, topic or possibility. They expected visits to the school counselor to rocket up. They thought kids were going to have, the equivalent of separation anxiety from their devices. And that there'd be a lot of visits to the counselor to deal with that fallout. And they said there has not been. So other than the tanking vending machine sales, it seems to be a complete success, distraction-free learning.
So that's from the officials that are over this.
Yeah.
What's the feedback from Alex?
You know, he has been pretty good about it. Actually, both Alex and Liz, and they're addicted to their phones, straight up. Love you kids, love both of you, but you are absolutely addicted to your phones. But no complaining. They come home for the most part in chipper moods. Some, they're teenagers, or one of them's a teenager, the other one's about to be. So they have their normal teenage, I'll say, pissiness in general sometimes. Kind of funny that they ban phones, but also this is the first year they ban phones and they give out Chromebooks to everybody. 31,000 Chromebooks they're handing out to the students of Forsyth County. Everybody in middle school and high school is getting a Chromebook. Alex has his. It's not a very nice laptop, Tim, just to be honest with you, but it gets the job done. In this same article where they cover the opening school week or opening couple of school weeks, apparently there are 4 families that have abjectly refused to take Chromebooks on. So, and the school is working with those 4 families who will not have technology at all in their house. I don't know if they're like Amish or what's happening there, but there are 4 families who will not take Chromebooks into their houses. And Forsyth County is okay with that. They're going to have some sort of alternative lesson planning for them. And then final note on this, just because it was in one of the articles I was reading, there was a reference link about the Gen Z stare. Do you have any idea what this is?
I have zero idea what this is.
So this is a hot meme on the internet, on the interwebs, as they call it. And the concept, the only reason I put this in here is because I've lived this a little bit. And there is a stereotype against our Gen Z children that they have a bad habit when they're in, say, a service industry. If they're working at Smoothie King or Chipotle or wherever they're working, that you go up to order a smoothie or a burrito bowl, what have you, and they don't greet you. They just look at you. Like you get to the desk and they just look at you and wait for you to be like, hi, I'll have a chicken, avocado bowl on there. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I've seen that aspect of it. But in the article, one of the specific things that they mentioned, I'm like, oh my God, this hits home. They're like, try calling a Gen Z individual on the phone, calling them, not texting them, and just gauge their interaction with you. And one thing we've noticed with both of our kids, but Elizabeth, whom I love, I'm going to call you out, you're worse about this. They pick up the phone, and you can hear them picking up the phone and like the rustle as they, figure out that this thing actually does audio in addition to text. They'll put up to their ear and then they don't say anything. They don't say hello. Natalie has, I can't tell you how many times, gotten onto our daughter about this. Like when you pick up the phone, you're supposed to say hello to initiate the conversation. But it's something both of my kids have been bad about, and they're only like starting to get a little bit better. But have you noticed that as well, the hello thing?
Well, I mean, look, let's just start with the fact that we have 3 children, 2 in their 30s, and then Zach in his 20s. And if you actually call them, you'll get a text message back, why are you calling me? So with that, look, the irony of this is, and I can still recite it for you today, John. When I got to the age that I was allowed to answer the family phone, the one hanging in the kitchen with the 6-mile cord that was always all bunched up, the only way that you were allowed to answer the phone is I had to pass a test with my mother and father and be able to articulate when I picked up the phone. It was, thank you for calling the Artz residence. This is Tim speaking. How may I help you?
That's nice.
And if my mother or father would have ever heard me answer the phone like, hello, or what's up, or whatever, lost phone privileges. So what you're describing to me, I'm not overly surprised with. I haven't experienced that, to your point. I haven't experienced that in the service industry of just walking in somewhere where they're just staring at you.
The one thing I'll give credit to on the Gen Zers, although I think the millennials kind of started this, texting is pretty efficient. I get to the point even now, I'm an old man. I remember talking on the phone, and I still prefer to talk on the phone a lot of times, especially when it comes to work stuff. But when people leave me voicemails, Tim, that drives me crazy. It's like, if you want to call me, that's fine. I love a phone call. But if we work together, don't leave me a voicemail. Call me, and if I don't pick up, text me, send me a message on Teams. But having to check my voicemail and write things, that should be dead.
I will tell you, I committed the cardinal work sin of life this week. So I have a new direct report, and she was in town, and we were going through some things, and I won't go too deep into this, but we needed some information from one of our customers that would help them, honestly. And I called the customer contact up, and it's like I forgot that I was leaving a voicemail, and it did everything but give me the tone that I've gone on too long. But then I'm like, oh, I need to somehow delete this and like just leave a quick message like, hey, this is what I'm trying to get from you. Can you give me a call back? But in the process of trying to delete the message, I somehow gave it a priority urgent. And I'm like, dude, I sent him a text. I left him another voicemail apologizing and sent him an email. Like, completely lost my mind there. I don't exactly know what happened. Sorry to have a whole conversation on your voicemail. So I'm like, I'm not leaving voicemails for anybody anymore.
I think that's a good idea. But yeah, so any millennials, sorry, not millennials, you guys are fine. Any Gen Zers listen to this, guys, at least hello. If you're not going to go down the full hello, Artz residents, how may I help you? Then maybe that's a bit much. At least say hello for Christ's sake.
But
no, fair enough. Did you have a little notepad next to the phone too, where you could take messages?
It was bigger than a notepad because it literally, we had to write, it was true message pad. Do you remember the pink message pad?
I do, yes.
That's what we had.
Oh, fancy. Man, the Arts, you guys really knew how to stay organized over there.
It didn't work.
So I do want to move on to local news here, because we got a couple of good stories, including a big one. Forsyth County News had some top-notch journalism. So our first local news story, Tim, this is by request. Did you know that Dana texted me specifically about the Connie House drama?
No, I did not.
Dana reached out. She's like, John, love the show. Andres is great. You're terrible. But she said, I like the restaurant reviews. And you seem to have skipped over a fairly big one. We actually had a major restaurant coming that was shut down because of the reviews. How have you not covered this? And I texted Dana back and I said, Dana, that's a good call out. Thank you for holding me accountable to my constituents on the podcast. So I'm going to look into this. The restaurant in question was Connie House. Do you guys ever go to Connie House? Is this why Dana's invested?
No, in fact, we have been there 2 times in the 12 years that we've lived here, 11 years that we've lived here. And both times we're like, we are not fans. Now that seems to be blasphemy because I know that there's a few, especially within our group, there's a few people that are big fans of it and like to frequent it, think it's a big night out. I'm not sold. Yeah.
Well, Dana asked, so I shall deliver. There's a story link here, Tim, that you can click on if you actually want to read the story in Forsyth News. But they failed twice and were actually shut down. Their first failure was on June 6th. They got a 55 score, which, as you know quite well, is not a passing score. They had 6 weeks to get their act together for a retest. So the inspectors come back out on July 14th, and they failed again. And here's the funny part. They actually got a lower score than they did the first one. So they had already... Man, that is some active indifference right there. If you can get a lower score on your follow-up health exam than you did originally. But the second failure on July 14th, they got a 49. So the state health inspectors are like, guys, this shit has to stop right now. They shut them down that day. And then they were entitled to some sort of emergency third inspection. They were able to reopen later that week. I think they were shut down. I believe July 14th was a Monday and the 17th was a Thursday, and they were back open later that week. But the state health inspectors shut Connie House down for 2 successive failures after 6 weeks. I thought this was funny. There was a quote from the owner, Jin Rowe. And the quote was, if they knew what we do for the community, how we support the community and how we support our own employees, if they would have considered that, they wouldn't have given us a 49. So I think it's funny because it's like, just because you support the community, which I can't think of anything Connie House has ever done for the community. It's not like they're institutional and holding, charity pledges or whatever. But apparently if you do, they think that entitles you to do whatever the hell you want on the health report. They wouldn't have given them a 49 if they'd only known how nice they are to the citizens and employees of Connie House.
Yeah. I mean, I know that they are sponsors of different sports programs and things like that through the schools, but I mean, you're right. It's not like we show up to the various parades through downtown coming, and like this event brought to you by Connie House or so. Yeah, interesting. But I'm with you. I also don't know that your community service, which is supposed to be, depending on your religious followings, it's supposed to be done in private and between you and your Lord, and
not to get a free pass on the health score.
Right, exactly. So anyway,
so some of the highlights for what they did wrong. And this is my favorite. This is why I want to speak to one of the health inspectors to determine exactly what this means. But once again, the person in charge did not perform, in this case, I'm pulling the quote exactly from the article. The person in charge did not perform active managerial code. I think usually this is phrased as the person in charge did not have active managerial control, like they're not following the rules. They're not managing their employees, but that showed up again in Connie House. Kitchen employees didn't change gloves and wash their hands after touching exterior doors and hairnets. Hairnets is interesting. There were no EPA-approved disinfectants in the establishment, Tim. So the EPA's got to approve them. This one's bad. Dirty utensils were stacked and marked as clean. I don't ask a lot from restaurants, but that's a primary function.
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely want clean utensils. This is another one that's bad. Food temperature was measured above the required maximum of 41 degrees. That always gets dicey, especially I'm going to assume Connie House serves sushi, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're going to want to be really careful with the food temperature. And then kind of in contrast to the no EPA-approved disinfectants, the sanitizer solution was, again, mixed too strong. We're now seeing this come up. Apparently, there's a nice balance you've got to strike. We've seen a couple where they didn't have any sanitizer. Now we've got a couple where there's too much sanitizer in the solution. Got another bad one for you. The inspector observed a bottle of milk that was 7 days past expiration. Although, I'll be honest with you, Natalie knows this. I would absolutely drink milk 7 days past the expiration.
Yeah, as long as it passes, I'm with you. If it passes the sniff test, look, I'm a big believer that the expiration dates on a lot of this stuff is all for the
commercial driven.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're just trying to sell you more stuff.
But I'm not calling you out, Dana, but I'm calling you out because literally, she takes it a step further that like the day before.
Oh, come on, Dana.
It's already gone. So we have a tough time with milk. Any given time you can come to my house and have spoiled milk because we don't drink enough of it that it sits there, and then we always have it on hand, but I don't really know why because we don't drink a lot of it. Usually you need a tablespoon for a recipe or something like that.
Oh, I would say half my spices are from, the turn of the century. They were there for Y2K.
And somebody needs to explain to me how dried spices somehow go bad.
Yeah, they don't.
But yeah, exactly.
So that's fine for our houses. I'll risk it. I'll give it the old smell test and a bottle of milk. But again, I have different expectations for restaurants. I would prefer my restaurants to have milk that is within the expiration time frame.
You'd like to think that they're turning it enough that you're not going to have that challenge.
Right. That they're not going to give the same excuse we do. Like, well, we don't drink a lot of milk.
Right.
Connie House. I'm just trying to be, sensible. And then a food prep employee was working without a hairnet, which, okay, whatever. So they get shut down. That was July 14th. The faucet is turned off, but they did reopen. And then our same owner there, Jin Rowe, so I also thought this was kind of funny. He saw fit to contact the Forsyth County News proactively. So he reached out to them and was like, hey, mother effers. You ran plenty of stories about my shitty restaurant being closed down. Run this story. Are you an Office fan? Michael Scott, The Office?
Yeah.
This makes me think of when they had the episode where like somebody had the duck and the pig having a sex act.
Yeah.
And he was like, we're gonna call a press conference. Like, you got to control the story. That's Jin Rowe at Connie House. He reaches out to Forsyth County News to issue a statement after the third inspection. And that statement was, over the past few weeks, we have implemented rigorous new training programs, updated our kitchen protocols, and invested in new equipment to ensure we are meeting the highest standards of cleanliness and food safety. This score is not just a number to us. It represents our unwavering commitment to providing a safe and healthy dining experience for our valued customers. Jen, I would argue that your commitment did waver a little bit for at least a few weeks there in June and July.
Exactly. I may have brought this up on a previous episode, but my son is a restaurant manager, and in pursuit of what we're trying to solve for with getting a health inspector on, I actually had a conversation with him recently. We were up in Columbus together, and I had a conversation with him on this whole lack of managerial control. And the explanation that he gave, now they're in Rock Hill, South Carolina, so it's, calls it Charlotte metropolitan area, but he's obviously evaluated by the South Carolina folks. But what he was explaining with that particular thing is it truly is that of giving direction. So if I've told you what the process is for washing the dishes as an example, so here's the rinse station, here's the wash station, here's the sanitizing station, then they go out. If you've given that direction and it's not being followed, like the employee is just over there just
on his phone,
rinsing it and dipping it into the sanitizer and calling it a day, which is how you end up with the dirty stuff. So that is when they'll go back and cite lack of managerial control because they're just kind of letting people do their own thing.
Okay.
So
we got to get like multiple members of the Artz family. We can have Dana come in. She can participate in the restaurant reviews. We can have your son. Maybe we can have him join in remote. He could be our boots on the ground expert on these things.
I like the surprise of not knowing what the show is going to cover that day. So I was actually I was almost reached out to him yesterday and saying, look, I'm going to throw a curveball at John and we're going to call you up. So you actually have to answer that phone with a greeting. And you and him would have a blast discussing conspiracy theories because he is massive rabbit holes of conspiracy theories. And I was going to just randomly call him this morning and say, what's the number one conspiracy theory that you're invested in right now?
I say that we do call him.
He'll never. I'll have to send him a text now to say, we're going to call you in 20 minutes. You have to answer.
See, I was going to say, don't tell him what to answer with because we're gonna see if he answers like, "Hello, Artz residence." Although it wouldn't be his residence. People don't have house phones anymore. It's just his personal phone. All right. You needle on that. If we want to call him, we can set that up pretty quickly.
Okay.
And we can do a quick conspiracy dig. We can get his take on restaurant reviews. But I did put this in here specifically for your lovely wife, Dana. She had reached out to me and said, hey, you're covering all the restaurant reviews. You had a whole damn restaurant shut down in July and you didn't mention a word about it. So Dana, that one's for you.
She thought you were part of the conspiracy theory because she thought you were not touching the Connie house because of how dear it is to some of the listeners.
It was my 20% equity stake in Connie house.
Yeah.
We're going to do a couple of quick light ones, if you can call this next one light, because we do have like a pretty good story that we're going to cover today. We had a man threatening relatives, or a relative, not multiple relatives that I know of. A man threatening a relative with a taser. This was at high school. It was at East Forsyth High School too. Mm-hmm. And I've made my jokes about North Forsyth being the the substandard Forsyth County High School. And it was Todd Early who was like, you need to be looking at those deadbeats over at East. That's the real problem. So maybe Todd's right. Maybe East is the bad high school, if there is one in Forsyth County. But Guanshan Leo, you talked about ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT to figure out how the hell to pronounce that name.
I understand.
I do that. So Guanshan Leo, he showed up at East Forsyth High School. And the reason he drove there is because the victim, who's not named in this story, I assume because the victim is under the age of 18, right? But the victim said the two had been arguing earlier that morning at the family's home about his job. And this is I'm a proud subscriber, or I don't know if I'm proud, but I am a subscriber of Forsyth County News. But sometimes I'll say the quality of their writing is suspect. The exact sentence is the victim said the two had been arguing earlier that morning at the family's home about his job before the student blocked Leo on his cell phone and left for school. I don't know whose job. Are they arguing about Leo's job? Yeah, his job.
It can't be any clearer.
Right. Or the student's job. So I don't know. Somebody had a job and they were arguing about it. And the student, the victim, blocked Leo on his cell phone. And again, it's somewhat ambiguous noun use here, but I'm going to go ahead and assume the student blocked Leo on the student's cell phone and left for school. Leo, not to be deterred, was like, hell with this. You're going to block me. I'm going to follow you to school. And Leo blocked the victim in, and this is more Forsyth County writing funniness. So this time they were very specific about whose car was being used for the blocking in. So Leo tailgated him to school and blocked the victim in using Leo's vehicle, according to the report. It's a quote from the Forsyth County News. Leo demanded the victim's phone, and when the victim refused, Leo returned to his vehicle and came back and showed the victim a taser and threatened to tase him if he did not give him the phone. At that point, the victim called the police. Police showed up and said, Guanshan, I don't know how long you've been in Forsyth County, but we strongly discourage the threat of tasering your relatives for not handing over the cell phone. So you're coming with us, sir.
On school grounds.
Yes. So Leo, this guy's in deep shit. This is going to go down poorly regardless of where you are in the county, but you got to drive to a kid's high school, you're going to block them in, and then you're going to threaten them with a taser. That's going to be an expensive legal proceeding that Leo's got to deal with at this point.
Allegedly,
yes. Yeah, he hasn't been found guilty yet.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he may show up on Felony Friday. Sorry, Andres.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we caveat all of our Felony Friday announcements.
Fuck you, Andres.
And then our next story, Tim, you may be happy about this. You may not care. I don't really care. BB's Bagels will be reopening this coming Wednesday. Does that excite you?
Well, did they get their
door
shipments?
problem?
Their shipments of water from New York?
So I texted Matt Frankel about that. I'm like, your boys at BB's are reopening. And we proceeded to get into a fresh argument about the shipping of water. He's still maintaining that they ship their water in from New York. And
so you thought the owner lied to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was, while I'm talking to him, he's texting his father. And he's like, you heard this. And it's, Matt, I love you, man. But even if your dad was like, oh, yeah, that's what they told me. They're not shipping their water in from New York City. It's simply not happening, Matt. You need to let that dream go. This is Georgia water that they're making these bagels with. But they are reopening at a new location in a nondescript office park near the Halcyon over there. That'll happen. The soft reopening is this Wednesday. What is that, August 20th, I think? Sounds right. And then the grand reopening will be next Saturday. They're going to have a grand reopening. It's takeout only this time. So I don't know if did you ever go to BB's?
I was actually a fan of BB's, but we were, I like a bigger breakfast with the bagel as a side, as opposed to just going there for the bagels.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure how that works in a takeout environment. And I didn't read the show notes close enough. I saw the release or the announcement on Facebook the other day that they were reopening this week, but it sounds like was it the bagel hole? Looked like there were some people that had come up with better alternatives that they actually thought were better than BB's. So
I think so. Yeah, it was actually Andres' wife, Allison. She recommended the bagel hole way back on that Love and Marriage episode that we did. And I've only been there once since then because I don't get bagels too frequently. But Natalie and I both prefer the bagel hole. And I think BB's bagels are very good. I'm not trash talking them. But I prefer the bagel hole bagels. They're open right now. And they didn't burn their restaurant down.
Without insurance.
Without insurance. And then started GoFundMe where they kept raising the ask for it. Take from that what you will.
That's right.
But yeah, so they reopened this Wednesday. Matt still claims the water's being shipped in from New York. Matt is wrong, as usual. The main difference is it is takeout only this time. There's no seating in the restaurant. I bet you parking's going to be a nightmare of this place. Parking was not great at the old location. It's going to be even worse if they're in some little office park over there. There was a whole conversation / internet argument on BB's announcement because I don't know if you were aware of this, but they tried to reopen earlier and there were delays with the state health inspector, which is an important component to this internet argument. But there was some sort of interior door in the new BB's Bagel restaurant where BB's will take in deliveries, and then there's an internal door that separates the delivery bay from the internal restaurant. And I guess the state health inspectors were not happy with the door. It didn't meet whatever criteria. I don't know. I'm not a state health inspector, right? But because BB's is such a beloved Forsyth County institution, the residents, the citizens of Forsyth County were going apeshit on our local Forsyth County commissioners about this, trying to get them to, exempt the door or go in there and grant some special favor. And one of the commissioners, Laura Simonson, was in the comments for these Facebook threads. And she was very diligently responding to the citizenry of Forsyth County, stating, like, guys, this is not a county issue. The health inspections are driven by the state. And these political science majors on Facebook were arguing that, in fact, no, it is the county doing it because the county has a health inspection office. And Commissioner Simonson, she was trying to explain to these yokels that a state agency can still have a county office, but it doesn't make it a county function. So it was just literally comment after comment of people throwing the commissioners under the bus and contacting various Forsyth County commissioners to get them to look into this matter. And poor Commissioner Simonson was reaching out saying, guys, Jesus Christ, this is not a county issue. If you want to get something done, here's the folks you can reach out to. It's a state department. Sure, there are people that are in the county that do this, but it's still a state function. But regardless, they do appear to have gotten the door fixed because they are going to open this coming Wednesday.
And I found out the whole state piece in my pursuit of trying to get Alan to either come on or send a representative to come on, because I will also tell myself here. So in my phone pursuit, and literally a half a dozen calls, like, you asked me, how'd you get this email address? And this is great. So do you think I ever thought about maybe going on the internet and looking to see that there's 2 pages into the Forsyth County, there's a whole listing for all those people? No, not Tim. I'm calling people, random people, just dialing for dollars. Like, how do I find this? Who can I get connected to? So anyway, I did notice when I was sending that email off asking for a special guest that I'm like, they don't have a Forsyth County prefix or
suffix email address.
Yeah, email address. So I was like, interesting. So anyway, that's how I learned that there was some separation there between the county. But
yeah, I'm not going to act like I knew that beforehand. Sure, I'm not an expert on I'll say county civics for state civics, but I do know enough that when somebody explains something very clearly to me, I go like, oh, thank you. I didn't know that. Appreciate you educating me. But Commissioner Simonson would explain this to people, and they would just completely refuse to believe her and continue tagging her in comments, accosting her for not approving the BB's bagel delivery door. So God bless you, Commissioner Simonson. You're doing the Lord's work. Actually, I guess you were not doing the Lord's work, because this made me laugh too. In the comments on the thread, I shouldn't be so cynical about this, because I'm sure it was meant very well. But there was a Forsyth County resident, and she prayed for BB's to reopen. And the comment was, in the mighty name of Jesus, Lord, we ask that you move this impossible situation. We ask that you move this impossible situation and declare BB will get the inspection they need and will begin serving their wonderful community. And again, I feel like an asshole for even kind of laughing at this, because it's sweet, right? It's meant well, but I just think it's funny. It's like, my picture of Jesus, he's not worried about BB's bagels.
I am hoping that there maybe is a couple more important things. It goes back to my Trump example with, why aren't you answering my letter instead of trying to solve a war? Anyway.
Jesus is out there on the battlefields of Ukraine, and he's like, I have to check in the phone. He's like, no, I'm going to go deal with this door. I don't have time for this.
Well, and even back to the point that we were just making on the previous point, the fact that these are state agencies, old Jen Rohn. I mean, think of the call back there. Yep. You wouldn't have done this to me if you knew what my community involvement was. Yep. Well, you know what? It's a state agency, Jen.
Well, good job. The prayer worked, obviously, because BB's is reopening.
Yes.
They mentioned
that's what I'm hoping. It was all dependent upon was the prayer.
The impossible situations. Like, I don't know. They probably just need to seal the door, lady. Like, it's probably not an immovable scenario, but it's open. Good job, BB's. Congratulations. Welcome back to Forsyth County. I'm not personally going to go there because I like Bagel Hole better, and I don't have any question about their ethics or integrity yet. We'll see what comes of it.
Still young. So are we gonna move into the fact that we have a nominee for the Thorngate board?
A nominee for the Thorngate board. You've lost me here.
The HOA. I didn't know if we were moving on into nominations of Julie Willett.
Willett, the main story. So I know you saw this because you and I were texting about this a little bit, but the title of the article was HOA Nightmare on Forsyth County News. The neighborhood in question is the Glen at Shakerag Farms. I don't really know where the hell this place is, to tell you the truth. I know it's in Swanee. But did you get a chance to read this story?
I did read it.
Yeah, a pretty interesting story. Now, you're a former HOA president yourself, right?
Never served as president, vice president, and treasurer, and a few other things.
All right. Well, then if you get back in the board, it seems like the natural step.
Yeah.
You gotta get your president's jacket. We'll invite you to the secret chat.
Awesome.
All right. So you were like the Dick Cheney of the HOA then. You were
Exactly.
You were not officially president, but you were running the show.
Yeah, we'll go there.
Okay. Well, I'm a former president. I'm a 2-time former president. I'm like Donald Trump. I had non-consecutive terms.
Awesome.
As president on the HOA. But this story by the Forsyth County News, it was a pretty good one. And normally you don't see, I'll say, investigative journalism from the Forsyth County News, but this time you did. So with our insights as former high-ranking members of the Thorngate HOA, I think we should be able to do this story some justice, Mr. Artz. But the HOA nightmare, the story author, Naisha Roy, I believe is her name. So Naisha from the Forsyth County News, if you're listening to this, good job. I thoroughly enjoyed reading your story. It ends rather abruptly, but like a lot of things in life, there wasn't a clean tie-off point. This controversy is still ongoing. The residents of Shakerag Farms, or the Glen at Shakerag Farms, are still under the iron grip of the antagonist of this story, one Julie Willett. So Julie Willett is a resident and an HOA board member at the Glen at Shakerag Farms. And near as we can tell, she's the only
potential. That was my thought reading the whole article was, I think this is a board of one.
Yeah.
Which may not be a bad thing either.
Yeah, so I was kind of wondering that myself too, or thinking that myself. I feel like Julie Willett is doing, is like enacting all the intrusive thoughts that certainly I've had on the HOA. Where it's like, you know what? If I just ran this damn thing with an iron fist myself, it would probably be a lot more effective. But, still generally in favor of democracy and following the laws. Julie said, "The hell with it. I'm going to run this HOA board single-handedly, unilaterally." That's the better word here. Allegedly, too. I have to say that.
You beat me to the punch. We need a clip for allegedly.
We do. We need an alleged soundbite here. I've got a feeling that Julie Willett is litigious. So, Julie, if you're listening to this, I'm just saying that the story article claims that you may or may not be the sole board member of the Glen at Shakerag Farms. Property management group, strike this from your list. Tim, Six's property management group. So they're out of the running if we ever need to switch away from PMI.
Did you try to research Sixes? Because that actually led me down the rabbit hole of trying to Google them.
So I did Google them. I looked at their reviews, but they're terrible.
Yeah.
Right. I'll go ahead and say that. The reviews of Six's property management group are terrible. But you know what? If you look at the reviews of any company in that space, they're not good. And I mean, that's just, I'll say that's the system of reviewing in general. For the most part, people that have a good experience or a neutral experience, they don't tell anybody about it, right?
Don't be rude.
But if you had a bad experience, first thing you do is go write about it. So yeah, there are tons of negative reviews for Six's property management group, but there's tons of negative reviews for PMI too. And I haven't experienced that. But the main thrust of this story is that Julie Willett is a resident at Shakerag Farms. I'm going to see if I can sum this up in one sentence. She appears to have had an iron grip on the HOA since 2018. There either are not elections, as happened this year, which we'll cover that, or the elections are suspicious, and there are actual claims of voter fraud from Julie Willett. So that's why she canceled this year's election for 2025. She said there was voter fraud occurring so that there would be no election. But in previous elections, they've abused the quorum requirement. And you'll know this, Tim, from our time on the HOA board. If you don't have a minimum quorum, the annual meeting that you have is invalid.
Right.
And typically the rules of the covenant, certainly this is true in Thorngate, if you don't hold a valid meeting, the current members of the board just continue on as it is. And the current members do have the right to appoint new board members. So without a quorum, there's very much a scenario where there is a dictatorial control of the HOA board, and there's very little that the residents can do about it. And that appears to be what's happening in the story here. So, and that one lady, Julie Willett, the residents that have been interviewed for this story, and a lot of the residents are anonymous. There were a couple of name sources in this article, but the residents that spoke to Forsyth County News, they mentioned that over 20 residents worked with Forsyth County News on this article, but there was only Antonio Gonsalves was one named resident, and then there was
Dale and Sarah
Foken. Yeah, thank you. And so most of the residents were remaining anonymous for fear of retribution. But the claims in this article is that Wheelette is the sole member of the HOA, and she is also not the president, much like you, Tim. Wheelette is officially the secretary, but she exclusively manages all meetings, levies fines, and made racist comments towards the neighborhood's Asian, Latino, and Indian residents. Here's a quote from the article. Homeowners who have lived in the neighborhood for decades, told Forsyth County News that they did not recall voting Wheelette in. and that no election results have been fairly counted in over 7 years. That's crazy. This year, 2025, a day after the ballots were due, Tim, Shakerag Farm residents received an email, which Forsyth County News obtained, stating that the election results were invalidated because the board had received, quote, a flurry of election ballots with some, quote, allegedly from foreign countries, and even recorded some candidates tampering with mailboxes in an attempt to, quote, take custody of blank election ballots. So Wheelette canceled the election this year due to all these nebulous accusations and concerns about voter fraud in Shakerag Farms. So that was the result. They had no election this year. A new one will be held next year. Again, also, can I use allegedly for that as well? Because I have a feeling it won't be.
I have my doubts on whether or not there'll be an election in the future. Maybe. I mean, we'll see what this all does. I feel like you're putting her in the realm of victim. I was highly impressed that she ran the annual meeting in 7 minutes.
She did. She did run the meeting in 7 minutes.
So
even that is a little suspect, though, Tim. I think let's go to the annual meeting notes we had on here. Speaking of that annual meeting, Tim, if you wanted to attend the annual meeting, you received a letter in your physical mailbox, and you had to manually type in a 200-plus character Microsoft Teams link. So now I'm going to say this. They have pictures of the letters that the residents received. This is where I wonder if it's a little bit of he said, she said bullshit, because the residents were complaining that if they wanted to attend the annual meeting, they had to manually type in this link from Microsoft Teams, which was. The link is posted in the letter that was received, or it was posted in a picture of the letter that was received by residents. But the very first line of the physical letter was that a copy of this letter will be emailed to you as well. So I don't know if the email was sent out to residents. If it was, obviously you can click on the link in the email. But the residents are claiming that if they wanted to attend that annual meeting, that was completed in 7 minutes. Impressive, Julie. They had to manually type in this 200-character link from Microsoft Teams. But even when they did get into the meeting, Wheelette, who was, and this is another quote, the only voice heard during the meeting, Wheelette had their mics muted. This would be the residents. And their cameras turned off. Wheelette was the only voice heard during the meeting, which lasted 7 minutes. Efficient. She covered the budget and the fact that they voided the election for 2025. So residents raised their hands to ask questions. Now, for anybody that's not been in a Microsoft Teams meeting, you might be asking, if you're muted and your camera's off, how do you raise your hand? Well, Tim, you might know this. In Microsoft Teams, there's a little button you can click to raise your hand.
Yes.
Indicating that you do have a question.
It's also on Zoom.
Is it on Zoom as well?
Yep.
So many residents did raise their little yellow virtual hands, but Wheelette ignored them all. And she closed the meeting after 7 minutes, and she claimed that no questions were asked in the meeting and no questions had been sent in advance. So she shut the whole thing down. But Forsyth County News did receive copies of emails that residents had sent submitting questions in advance for the annual meeting. So Wheelette just ignored those questions. Very dictatorial. What do you think so far? Do you think there's two sides to this story, Tim? Is there any scenario in which Wheelette is a reasonable person so far?
Efficient, maybe not reasonable.
Do you, having been a member of the HOA, do you kind of get it though?
Yeah, it does seem like their structure is different. Maybe. I mean, again, you would infer from the article that she actually was the one leveraging the fines on people, as opposed to it being the Sixes or whatever.
Sixes property management.
Yeah. So, that's obviously different than our neighborhood. So,
Well, I mean, I imagine it works the same. So even in Thorngate, for our Thorngate listeners who hate the Thorngate board, which I don't know why you would, because we're a pretty lenient board.
well, they are.
Yeah, they are. That's true. Yeah, we are not on the board anymore. But the reality is, sure, it is PMI that goes out and sends letters. If the board wants to, and if they're invested in it, and at least the boards I've been in, we've talked about this, but never quite gotten it off the ground. We have the ability to override that, right? If PMI was sending out something that just seemed ridiculous, we could say like, hey, Jane, drop this one. I want to be careful. I don't want to say that we never did it. I can't recall any time we overrode PMI because, again, my boards I was on, and I was on one with you as well, Tim, we always wanted to retain that, that disassociation for PMI so that there couldn't be claims of bias or favoritism in the neighborhood, right? So we very deliberately did not override any of PMI's assessments from what I can remember, but we could. And
I don't recall, even on my time on the board, I don't recall overriding any assessments. I know that based upon circumstances, sometimes we would work on the fine portion with individuals or things like that, but either extended amounts of time to pay or, hey, this is kind of suspect on this or that. We were always really, really tight on anytime we incurred a legal expense to pursue that, those were non-negotiables for us.
That was the same precedent we always followed. If you, a resident of Thorngate, cost the neighborhood money because we had to go talk to a lawyer or we had to send certified letters or whatever it was, we would be willing, in I would say the majority of cases, to drop fines. But if you cost us money, then you had to pay that cost.
Absolutely.
That was what we always left on the table. The vibe I get from this article, though, is that WeLet is not only not being reasonable and kind of, I'll say, objective with her neighbors, she's driving this in certain cases. One of the examples they gave in the article is about self-help, which again, Tim, you'll be familiar with the concept of self-help, which I've never used. I've never seen it used. I don't think it's ever been used in the Thorngate neighborhood.
We were close.
Yeah, there were a couple times that we were close.
Almost a driveway.
But for those that don't know what self-help is, when you join an HOA, by virtue of moving into a neighborhood, I mean, it's not an optional thing. If you're going to move into the neighborhood, joining the HOA is a requirement. You agree that the board of directors of the neighborhood can initiate self-help. What is self-help? Well, if you have a yard or a driveway that is not up to the standards required in the governing documents, the HOA does actually have the right to go out there and fix it themselves. So if we say, hey, you got this tree is a danger, it's going to fall over, it's a dead tree, and it's going to, damage community property or damage neighbor's property, and the homeowner staunchly disagrees and says the tree's fine, I'm not doing anything about it. It is within the rights of the HOA to go in there and cut that tree down themselves and then bill you back the charges. Like I said, I've never seen this happen in our neighborhood. I've certainly never initiated it. As far as I'm aware, it's never even occurred here. And there's a quote in the article from a real estate lawyer that Forsyth County News interviewed for the story. And he states that it should be used in extremely rare circumstances, basically where there is like a risk of physical injury or something like that, or a case where a homeowner is maybe out of state and they're not responsive, then you can do those sorts of things. But WeLet was allegedly, again, utilizing the self-help laws frequently within the neighborhood.
Well, there was another component to it too that I was a little, maybe I wasn't reading it as closely as I needed to be, but like the chimney cap situation, it seems like that didn't even fall under the self-help category. It was that they were dictating for these services you must use.
She seems to have decided that the chimney caps collectively in the neighborhood needed to be replaced, right? Which is an odd one. I mean, chimney caps, like really, who gives a shit? But to your point, she designated a specific chimney cap contractor that the residents had to use and pushed it out. So that's where the accusations of kickbacks came in here. And there was a quote from one of the residents in the neighborhood stating that when they went and got competitive bids from non-approved contractors, they were less than half what the approved contractor was charging. So WeLet is picking these contractors, putting them on an approval list, and then forcing some pretty obscure, I'll say, residential aesthetic requirements to replace chimney caps and things like that. There was actually a whole other article from 2022, I think it was, where there was a news story with 11 Alive News where she had decided she didn't like a lot of the trees in the neighborhood, and she was having the neighbors have to cut down trees in their front yards and backyards. So this lady's she's been very involved in the architectural aesthetic for the community, and she has some preferred vendors to work with. So that's where the accusations of kickbacks have come from with Wheelat. So Wheelat called the cops once. She showed the cops a photo of a homeowner opening another resident's mailbox. This was to evidence some sort of voter fraud accusation that Wheelat had. But the residents confirmed that nothing was taken from the mailbox, and they were renters anyway, so they wouldn't have even been voting. It just seems to have been a random police phone call that Wheelat made.
We've got a few of those in this neighborhood, huh?
Yeah, we do have a few of those. The residents that received the letters about the upcoming election, the letter was backdated to June 30th, but it was received July 3rd, according to the article. One of the purposes of the letter was to nominate new board members, but the due date was before 5 p.m. on July 4th. So letters were received on July 3rd with a requirement to submit their nominations the next day, which is July 4th, which is a federal holiday.
The federal holiday one confused me. Look, I wasn't over the top frustrated with the delay in the mail, only because we've experienced that ourselves. Not from PMI, by the way, but certainly from home side, where we would come say, hey, this has to be out on this date or whatever. And the letter was postmarked with the right date, but then it was like 2 weeks to show up on my mailbox. So there's enough other smoking guns here that I'd give Julie a pass on that one and say she can't really control USPS, and it's an interesting system, probably for a different day. But
I'll throw this out there. The postmark on the envelope, because there is a picture of the envelope in the article, was July 2nd. And the residents say they received it July 3rd.
Okay.
So yeah, it didn't get mailed out till July 2nd. They received it the next day, but the letter itself was backdated to June 30th.
Gotcha.
Now, if you really want to be charitable to Miss Wheelat, or Mrs. Wheelat, I don't know, maybe Sixes screwed it up. Going back to your comments about Homeside, it wouldn't be the first time that we asked our property management company to send something out, and the delay was on the property management company end. But in this case, the postmark is the day before the residents received it.
So somehow I missed the postmark piece. So, all right.
The article also alleges, and I will strongly use the word alleged here, that Wheelat was participating in a scheme to invalidate the votes of the residents. Now, how would she do this? She would issue fines on, presumably people she didn't like or she didn't think would vote in her favor days before the election was to be held. And Tim, you'll know this from your neighborhood. If you're not current on your assessments for the neighborhood, you can't vote. Your vote does not count. You've got to be current on all active assessments. So the implication here is that Julie was smart enough to, what's the right word, proactively invalidate the votes of people who might be voting against her by issuing fines shortly before the time of the election, where they'd have no ability to take care of those fines prior to the election, and therefore they couldn't vote on it.
And this is my smart ass remark. So I do think that there's an iron grip in play here, but let's face it. Who wants to be on the board of an HOA?
You say that, and I think you and I are able to laugh about that, having been on an HOA and having it been a pain in the ass for us. But the answer to that is there are absolutely people that get off on having whatever tiny amount of power, that they can get out of it.
Mall cop.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, my vibe is that Julie Wheelat is the mall cop variant. She's not the reasonable Tim, John, Robbie, Sean variant, right? Where it's like for the most part.
John Teague too.
John Teague as well, yeah. For the most part, none of us ever gave a shit what people did in the neighborhood, as long as it was not completely crazy, like a Quikrete driveway. We've received, or I'll say I've received at least, many nasty emails from homeowners about, a neighbor painting their house a certain color that they didn't like or whatever. And I never gave a shit. Paint your house whatever color you want to. I still have that little bit of libertarian streak in me, right? As long as you're not painting like signs on your house and political advertisements, I don't care what you do in the neighborhood. And there's even one or two in Thorngate that I've run across. I think I'm safe to tell the story. I won't name any names, and I'm not even sure I can remember the names. But my first stint on the HOA, this would have been back in like 2011, maybe 2010, 2011 timeframe. When did you move into the neighborhood?
2014.
2014. So a few years before you got here. So there is one house that I'm aware of in the neighborhood that has artificial turf in the backyard.
Yes.
Are you aware of this house as well?
I am.
Okay. And, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even care if you put artificial turf in your backyard. I get it. I totally understand it. But at the time, when I was on the HOA, and I had just joined, I was a nobody director. The guy that was in charge was Corey Turnbow. Did you ever know Corey?
I did not.
He was a good dude, really smart dude. And he was president of the HOA back when we had like serious financial challenges out there. We were completely broke. The builder went out of business. They absconded with the reserve fund that we had in there. They took $100,000. It was all completely legal because of the way bankruptcy laws work in Georgia. So we were up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. So it was on Corey Turnbow, who he did the first reserve study in the neighborhood to start to figure out like, hey, we're probably going to need to raise assessments. This is what we're going to put aside. Corey, if you're listening, which I'm sure you're not, you did a great job. It was a pleasure working with you. Learned a lot from you on the board. But he was, and actually I got involved at the tail end of this. There was a board member that was on with Corey, and they wanted to put AstroTurf in their backyard, the same house that we're talking about. And the board voted on it, and they had suggested that the board member abstain from the vote because of conflict of interest, voting on your own change request. The board member did not abstain from the vote, from what I understand, and the vote failed anyway. So even with the homeowner not abstaining on their own vote, the rest of the board members said, no, we want to have natural grass in the neighborhood, which, again, you can be in favor of or be opposed of, but that's how an HOA works. You elect representatives. They help, enforce the covenants, and the covenants at that time stated that you had to have natural grass. So the request was denied. So then this HOA board member started getting into, I guess they had some sort of medical condition. I don't remember the specifics, but they started getting into the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they were going to sue the neighborhood for violating the ADA because they couldn't keep up with their yard work. They had to have an artificial turf lawn, or else, it would literally cripple them. Now, the funny thing about this, having spoken with members of the board, is the individual that was threatening to sue the board because we were violating the ADA because they could not take care of their own property was a very active member of the tennis community.
I wouldn't call it very active, but she was definitely at many, many matches. Didn't move a lot, but was one of those magic tennis players that no matter, like, you think you were placing it around them and she would still somehow get the return.
So she was pretty good then.
Yeah, she was.
So that happened. That was my first stint on the board, as I remember that going down. And then...
well, she obviously she got reprieve, because I know that I think the new residents have torn it out now.
I don't think so. They hadn't a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And I spoke to the new owner of that house, and they love it, actually. They're like, yeah, it's fantastic. But I'm not sure if that's still it or not. They may have taken it out since that conversation, but I do remember talking to them after they purchased the house from this individual. Oh, but I guess to tie that off, so we relented because we were broke as hell. We had no money whatsoever. The dues at that time were $395, I think, or maybe $350.
You could do a fantasy football league for that.
My wife likes to remind me that every time I join the board, the dues go up. Because I was on the board when it was $395, and we raised it up to whatever it was, $595.
Yeah.
And then my return to the board was when we raised it up to $725, is what it's at now.
Still a bargain.
Oh, absolutely. Still a bargain. But Corey was kind of leading the charge there, and he's like, we can't afford a lawsuit. We can't afford to really even consult on this matter at this point because we got no money. So whatever, who gives a shit at this point? They want an AstroTurf yard. Let's just let it go. And it wasn't even like they approved it, because the homeowner just did it, right? And was like, hey, if you're going to issue fines on this, then we're going to have a nice little lawsuit on our hands. So, the board, I guess, looked the other way on that one. But yeah, people like that.
It was in the backyard too. But I don't want to take us down that rabbit hole. I didn't understand the ruling, but we had a similar thing when I was actually on the board, and when we put in the basketball hoop, there was a pretty big scandal about that, because supposedly you're not allowed to have portable hoops. I don't know. And there seems to be different variations of what the HOA guideline codes are, but I know on one of the versions it says you can't have a portable basketball hoop unless you put it away every night.
Yeah.
And by put it away, I mean, I think they expect you to roll it up into your garage and close your garage door and whatever. Well, I can tell you that doesn't happen.
No.
But we installed a permanent hoop and went that route because we actually thought, like, aesthetically it was more pleasing than everything else. And there was a little bit of hubbub on that initially. Now we got through the night and post-dated a architectural request and whatever and got approvals on it. But to me, the backyard that is not visible from the street or visible to your neighbors, I'm never necessarily understood alignments on stuff like that.
Well, I think that's where you get the Julie Wheelettes, right? Yeah. If you read, and you and I both read our covenants a number of times, are fairly familiar with them. If you really read the covenants, there's no exclusion to the backyard. The HOA absolutely could come in and beat dicks about things that you're doing in the backyard. And I mean, shit, you can go stand on my back deck and you can literally eyeball, a half dozen violations on my back deck. And I've been on the board for years. I don't give a shit. I don't care what people do with their backyards. For the most people, I don't care what people do with their front yards. That's why it's important to have a board of reasonable people on there. And I feel like this Julie Wheelette story, it really kind of highlights the dangers that even if you let an unreasonable board get in one time, like it could be bad for years to come. So anybody from Thorngate that's listening to this, you're welcome. So she's sending out letters a day before nominations are due. The next day is a national holiday. There's no way to even return your nominations in time. She appears to be invalidating votes proactively by issuing fines to homeowners prior to the election. She just unilaterally, near as I can tell, invalidated the 2025 election on the mere claim of voter fraud. It doesn't seem to be any real evidence of actual voter fraud. Let's see, what else do we have in here from Wheelette? She was frequently using self-help to correct unsatisfactory conditions in the neighborhood. We talked about self-help a second ago. We talked about her forcing homeowners to use specific contractors. There's a specific weed removal company and a landscaping company that she forces residents to use. So yeah, Wheelette. Preferred contractors, kickback charges. But on top of that, apparently it's just a shitty place to hang out these days in Shakerag Farms. So what the Forsyth County News did, and again, I thought this was pretty quality investigative journalism on the behalf of Forsyth County News. But they went and they used the Internet Archive and they pulled back various versions of the Shakerag Farms community guidelines and covenants on there. So they put together this chart, which I know our readers can't see it, but what the chart outlines is things that the residents of Shakerag Farms were able to do and when they stopped being able to do it. And what you're going to see is for the years 2009, 2016, and 2018, they were allowed to do things like have guests at the swimming pool. But in 2025, no more guests at the swimming pool. There were pool parties allowed at the pool, which anti-pool party, to tell you the truth. But they used to be able to do that, and now they no longer can. There are no guests on the tennis courts. How does that work in like the Alta situation?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so you have to be a resident to use the tennis courts. And they have a code to access their tennis courts, and the code changes every week. So if you're not an active paying member of the community, I guess you don't get the new code on there. So they've got this little checklist here, and there are all these things that you can do. There were community parties and events. Think like our 4th of July parade and chili cook-off. And they all stopped in 2018, right about the time Julie Wheelette was, can I say allegedly elected to the board? Because the residents appear to not remember electing her to the board. But yeah, so it's gone downhill.
Maybe she was appointed by a board member.
I'm wondering if that's what happened. Does the rabbit hole go even deeper?
Yeah.
Is Julie Wheelette just a puppet for like a shadowy Illuminati type organization in Shakerag Farms?
The underbelly.
So nobody remembers electing her. She may very well have been appointed, and she's been running the thing since 2018, and multiple failed elections, multiple invalidated votes that she got in there. Pretty crazy. So the final piece of this story, this is where I am going to make heavy-handed use of the alleged soundbite if we had one on there. Tim, next time you're on, I'll have an alleged soundbite.
Sounds good.
That we can put in there. But, lots of claims of racism in the environment. And I'm going to read these quotes, not because I necessarily believe that they occurred, just more than anything because they made me laugh. But Antonio Gonzalez is quoted in the article as saying, quote, "She already threatened one person saying that
I know you're illegal here. I'm going to call immigration on you if you keep giving me trouble. That's one quote. But then for Scythe
But
County
it's
News,
hearsay
it's hearsay.
because he is reporting what he heard or what somebody else told him was
Right.
said. So, yeah.
And that's why, Julie, if you're listening, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on this. I've heard all sorts of shit from residents of the Thorngate neighborhood. So, yeah, I don't really believe a lot of this. But then for Scythe County News did say that they obtained a recording of this next one, Tim. So there appears to be some validity to this. For Scythe County News obtained a recording of a phone call in which Ouellette can be heard yelling expletives and expressing disdain for the number of Indians that have recently moved into the neighborhood. Several residents allege that prior to the election, Ouellette called homeowners and asked who they would be voting for. They must have told her who they were going to be voting for, and that's why she canceled the election. But they say that she claimed the neighborhood would turn into a, quote, shithole if Indians were elected to the HOA board. Another quote, alleged quote. Let me go ahead and say that again. Liberal use of alleged here. But allegedly, Ouellette said, she told everybody, if you vote for Indians, it will become so bad. This was one homeowner who requested to be anonymous, said, I like the follow-up quote. Quote, the neighborhood will be so bad. That sounds like Donald Trump to me. It'll be so bad. The neighborhood will be so bad. But on the website, the neighborhood has a website, and they used to name all of the HOA board members on the website. Gone, 2018, pulled that down. So there is no listing of who the board members are. And then, yeah, I mentioned this already, but if you wanted to even attend the meeting, you had to type in a 200-character Microsoft Teams link. That is assuming that the letter was not emailed. The printed letter says the letter will be emailed, but I don't know if it actually was. And when they joined the election, several of the residents were kicked out of the meeting. I don't know if they were not current or they're part of this shadowy international conspiracy that was trying to get Ouellette off of the board. And that's where the article wraps up, Tim. Unfortunately, I was hoping for some sort of closure or a final point on it. Sounds like these guys are still struggling. I saw that the neighborhood has a GoFundMe. GoFundMe, Jesus. But they have a GoFundMe that the residents have started to get assistance with legal fees, presumably to go after Ouellette or Sixes or do what they can to shake this board up.
Yeah, I mean, I left you. I was longing at the ending. It's not Tony sitting at a diner, but my guess would be that there'll be hopefully some follow-up reporting, but it was interesting. Like I think maybe you and I have a deeper appreciation for it. Hopefully we didn't lose our listeners over the last 20 or 25 minutes while we unpacked all of this, but it is interesting from a community standpoint, but I think probably closer to us because of having been on the board.
Yeah. Well, and I think you and I can see, and I'm going to again preface the statement by saying none of what Ouellette is allegedly doing is okay. But there are parts of it where it's like, I can understand where you're going. If I don't have the full story, right? Like the abuse of self-help, is that because she's being a dick? Or is the neighborhood in shambles? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and is she trying to rehab the entire neighborhood? Is that what she's doing? I don't know, because I'm not there. In all seriousness, Tim, I did start to go down the path of reaching out to members of Shakerag Farms, trying to identify homeowners and seeing if I could talk to them to get some additional context out of this. I wasn't able to, I'll say, definitively identify specific people. There's a lot of common names that I saw in the article or across Facebook on there, but I'm gonna try to see what I can do to follow up on this if Scythe County News doesn't. But I'm with you. I hope they do a follow-up article on this.
Yeah.
The way the internet is, this lady, Ouellette, rightly or wrongly, probably rightly, is going to get dragged. More will come out of this. There'll be comments on Facebook. You know, I was surprised that I didn't see much of this on like the focus on Forsyth communities and on Facebook.
Yeah.
Surprised they didn't pick up and run with this. I think the white whale of this story is that we're able to get an interview with Ouellette. Forsyth County News did mention the article. They reached out to her for comment multiple times, and she responded through the board's law firm.
Yeah.
Which I get that too.
For sure.
Having been on a board, I understand that aspect of it as well. That was it for local news. Any local news that you're aware of that I missed?
Well, it's not really local. I meant to bring this up at the opening, and I let it slip past. But and it's obviously this won't be published today. But today's Jeff Savone's birthday.
Happy birthday, Mr. Savone.
So anyway,
that's
I can check that off my list. Yeah, it isn't. It is now.
Happy birthday, sir. Do you know how old he is?
I do not.
Say he's 40.
There you go.
Yeah. Happy 40th birthday. Jeff. All right, we're running long here, Tim. We tend to do this. I always have good conversation with you, sir.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
There's a couple national stories though.
And there's one that didn't make your list. We'll touch briefly on the NCAA sanctions against the University of Michigan.
Let's just get into it now then. So this is on the football team?
Yeah, it's from the, basically the NCAA put out a report that for lack of a better term, this was felonies. This school committed felonies over time in their own writings. They committed felonies, and the so-called punishment handed down this week is laughable. Basically they talked about ruling with a hammer, and it was more like a feather tickle. Is my assessment of it. Like
no vacated championship or anything like that?
Nothing vacated, which is crazy to me. I mean, it always goes back to when they vacated USC's national championship and took away the Heisman. Now Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back, but they've never reinstated the vacated national championship for USC and all that. The whole thing stinks. I mean, I won't drag us into the rabbit hole, but there's, he got a technically, people argue with me that he got a 3-game suspension because he served 2 games voluntarily last year trying to preempt.
Are we talking about Jim
Sharon?
Who are we talking about?
The head coach of Michigan.
I thought the head coach of Michigan was Jim Harbaugh or whatever.
No, he left and went is coaching professional football now.
Was he not the one that won the national championship?
Yeah, it was. But
okay.
Sharon Brown was an assistant on that team, and he stepped up into the head coach role. And so he voluntarily took a 2-game suspension last year, self-imposed.
Knowing that this was coming.
Right. And so they came back and said, well, that's not enough. So they gave him a 3-game suspension, 2 of which are served. So now he sits out against, I don't know, whoever their tough opponent is, whatever MAC school they're opening up against. So that's part of the punishment. There's a fine assessment for them that is, the article I read said that they could probably raise that money in any single charity golf outing that they got with their big donors. They forfeit splitting of the playoff funds and things like that for the next 2 seasons. There's a garnishment against the money that the program brings in, and I think that's a portion of their scholarships that have to be paid. I mean, basically, it was at the end of the day, for all of how serious the violations were, the punishment was, it's like getting a warning for doing 90 through a school zone. It doesn't hold water. I think we won't unpack all this. I think it just further insult to the NCAA as a governing body, and it would be interesting to see how that ends up. And
of course, there's no personal feelings here with them being your arch rivals.
So, I mean, I don't think it's any different than the USC. That's why I bring that up. Like, I would hope that fans of college football and what's trying to define what's right or wrong would see it the same way I do. It is an arch rival. I get all that. But I look at what the allegations were. I look at the fact that the NCAA themselves came out and said these are egregious, that, we absolutely will have to do something.
So let me jump in on that one, though, because, and I actually don't know what Michigan is, I guess, not alleged to have done here. They've now been found guilty of. But I would say that without knowing, again, what Michigan's done, the difference with USC and Reggie Bush was that the entire USC program and Reggie Bush in specific were found guilty of accepting money, right? They were amateur athletes, and these players were being compensated in some way, hence Bush losing the Heisman, USC losing the title. I didn't realize Bush got his Heisman back. That officially happened?
Yeah.
Okay, so then USC should have their title reinstated. But I understand why that happened in light of the new rules, laws, or whatever in terms of what is the national endorsement? I can't remember what the hell it is. Names and likenesses. NIL money.
NIL.
Right?
Yeah.
So in that case, if USC were to be, I'll say, re-awarded their national championship, it would be because it now lines up with what's legal in college football. But what has Michigan done?
But So let me address that. Okay. So I'm glad Reggie Bush got his Heisman back. Whether or not he was paid doesn't impact what his performance was on the field.
Agreed.
So I just lost the term I'm not a revisionist here. The laws were the laws.
That's fair.
So I don't necessarily support that USC should get their national championship back. I think you blur the lines when you say, okay, Reggie, here's your Heisman back. You deserved it, and we're sorry. And now the rules have changed, so it makes sense. I'm kind of like, hey, these were the laws then. There's a lot of things. You open Pandora's box when you start saying, well, that law changed. It was dumb then, or it's dumb now. We can look back and say it's dumb. So therefore, we're going to rewrite all that. I don't agree with that. You asked me a question, what did Michigan do? So the biggest thing, there was recruiting violations and things like that. That happens, I think, most across every school. The biggest thing that brought all of this to light was an assistant. I don't even know that he was an assistant coach, but there was somebody on staff for the Michigan team. I think he started as a volunteer or assistant, but it was this whole sign stealing scandal where they were using team funds, football program money to go buy tickets to sit there.
That will probably still be illegal in 20 years.
and capture the signs that the other teams were using and then be able to, predict or be able to watch what was happening real time in games and relay that them to tell them how to defend it and things like that. It's for a purist, you were impacting the outcome of the game in a negative way, and you tried to hide it. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
All right. In lighter news, we might be killed by aliens around about this Halloween. So this is a story here. Avi Loeb is a Harvard-educated astronomer, Tim, and he says that an object was discovered in June, is cataloged as 31 Atlas. I don't know how the hell the cataloging works. That's what they're calling this object, though. And it is going to pass near Earth this coming Halloween. Loeb noted that the object does not seem to have the characteristics commonly associated with a comet. Not only is it significantly larger than usual, but it has a light source ahead of it instead of the typical tail glowing behind it observed on comets. So it has headlights. So the quote from Loeb is, "The response has to depend on its properties and its intent. What is it doing as it comes closer to us?" So this guy, Avi Loeb, is saying there is at least a non-zero chance that there is an interstellar spacecraft coming to visit Earth, and they'll be here, right about this Halloween while we're in the basement at Platinum Property. Yeah. So in the article, it goes into that the world governments should, if they don't already, which they probably do, they should start figuring out the protocol that if this is an intergalactic visitor, like, what are we going to do? Who are we going to send up to parlay with the aliens?
Well, maybe we'll take somebody out of the freeze chambers out in Area 51 and send them out to intercept on our behalf.
I would imagine at this point, I feel like if a giant intergalactic spacecraft parked outside the Earth around about Halloween in 2025, I feel like it's a little bit par for the course. Just the way things have been going the last few years, I would just look up at the Death Star and say, yeah, I can't say I'm completely surprised.
Exactly.
So yeah, Avi Loeb, he thinks we should, have a plan in action here in case this is an intergalactic visitor. I did find Loeb on Twitter because this is like the fake news bullshit. I'm like, all right, this was the New York Post, right? Was where I found the article. So grain of salt right there on the source. But I'm like, let me go see if I can find Avi Loeb on Twitter and see what his comments are. He is saying these things. He is saying that there is, a non-zero chance it could be intelligent life. He seems to have backed off on the headlights on the comet. He's like, we do see shit like that happen from time to time. It's unusual, but not unheard of. So he is pointing out now that it very well could just be a large comet. And sometimes large comets have their own minor orbits that can pull things in front of them. So, not saying it's aliens, but it could be. But he is still maintaining, though, that the Earth collectively should have some sort of engagement plan if the aliens visit here. I have to imagine that we do. Don't you think locked in some Pentagon file cabinet, there is, plan ZZZ, where it's like the aliens show up? We gotta do something, right?
Yeah. anybody who's watched Independence Day knows that we're not going to be caught by that.
Yeah. But we don't have Bill Pullman.
Well, true.
Can we still look? This is not a comment on Donald Trump, but I am not voting for Donald Trump to be our first negotiator with the aliens.
We're just going to tariff them.
Yeah, that's 29%. I would take Bill Pullman. He could go up there and have a conversation. I don't know who I would send. I don't know who I would pick to be our main negotiator if the aliens do arrive here, Tim.
That's an alive or dead. I can't get to it fast enough. But didn't Bill Pullman die? I'm not inadvertently putting him in the ground, am I?
Bill Pullman. I don't know. Let's Google it here real quick. He's still got an age here.
Okay.
Wikipedia does not say that he's dead.
I'm mistaking him for someone else. Good to know he's still alive.
I have a guess here. Is this the guy that you're mistaking him for? Bill Paxton?
Maybe.
And Bill Paxton is dead.
Okay. Yep.
Next up on national news here, Howard Stern. You ever listen to Howard Stern?
Back in the day, but I definitely not as of late for several years. Not any political reasons or anything else. I just kind of grew tired of it.
Well, I think a lot of people have too, right? Because that's one of the sub bullets here. The whole shock jock culture. Howard Stern, Bubba the Love Sponge, even our beloved regular guys in Atlanta morning radio. I feel like that whole concept is just done. It doesn't really happen anymore. Been killed off, death by 1,000 cuts between podcast and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all those things. But that genre of radio or of show, it just doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. I think Howard Stern was kind of the last of the breed that we had in that. And now it looks like he's going to be gone too.
Yeah, definitely Andy and Opie. Were you familiar with that show?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm forgetting his last name. Jim starts with an N. Anyway, Jim was a guest on Joe Rogan recently, and he was talking about those days and kind of that whole era. And that was right as this was starting to break about Howard. I mean, look, I'm not going to cry for him. I'm sure he's been able to pocket much more of that.
Well, he signed a $500 million contract 20 years ago.
Right.
So I'm sure it's been re-upped multiple times. $500 million in 2006.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's got to be, if not a billionaire, he's got to be very close to it at this point.
So
yeah, he'll be able to retire just fine. But my guess is you mentioned Joe Rogan. That'll be what he does next. He's going to open up his own Howard Stern podcast, and I'm sure he'll make a few bucks off of that. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere, but the terrestrial radio Howard Stern show, as we know it since the 80s, looks like it's coming to a close this year. All right, Tim, we are running along. We only got one news story left here on the national news. You're, of course, welcome to add anything ad hoc. And the last one, we can be quick on this one because it's just gross and weird. But if you've been out to Colorado recently, you may have noticed some of your rabbit friends have tentacles growing out of their faces.
I am not at all familiar with this story, and it is a disturbing picture for the listening audience.
Yeah, we'll throw it up in the show notes so people can see it. But wildlife officials confirmed that certain cottontail rabbits in Fort Collins, Colorado, have been infected with the Shope papilloma virus, also known as cottontail rabbit papilloma virus. But don't worry, Tim. According to big government, the virus will not infect humans, dogs, or other pets. I put a note in there. I'm like, what if you have a pet rabbit?
Well,
It seems like it could infect them, right?
Seemingly.
And it's spread via insect bites. So think things like mosquitoes, horseflies, what have you. But they bite these poor little rabbits. And then, you get that disgusting tentacled rabbit feature in there.
So, I'm not suggesting you're the expert on this, but since I wasn't even familiar with it and you've at least researched it enough to put it into the show notes, is each one of those disgusting tentacles coming off of them from each individual bite, or is this something in the bloodstream and then the body is producing those? It's
in the bloodstream, and the tentacles are keratin. So same sort of stuff that's in your fingernails.
Yeah.
So it's black fingernails growing off their faces and these pointed tentacled looking things though. It could be just one bite, but once it's in your bloodstream, these tentacles could appear throughout your body. I'll say I looked at a bunch of pictures. They all seem to very creepily focus on the face. That's a weird virus to me. I don't know if it's something about like the way blood flows throughout the body, or if there's, like thinner membranes. I'm not even going to attempt to postulate on what medical reason there could be that they're centralizing around the face. But most of the rabbits seem to have this infection around their face. But yeah, it's just keratin. Apparently it's harmless. The vet that was interviewed for the story says that they tend to just fall off their face. Look at that poor bastard.
That is disturbing. Take an adorable pet.
I do feel like this is one of those stories where it's like, listen to the jackasses talk about the rabbit tentacles in the podcast. And then a few years from now, there's another COVID global shutdown. Because it turns out that the vet was wrong. And that this is transferable to humans and pets, non-rabbit pets. So I thought we'd close the show on that, Tim.
Awesome.
Do you have any pet rabbits, or have you ever had a pet rabbit?
I have not personally had a pet rabbit. My daughter had a pet rabbit for a long time.
Okay, well, it sounds like your daughter no longer has a pet rabbit. If she gets another one, stay out of Colorado.
For sure.
How is Teddy these days? Have you caught the Parestas?
We have not. We have not solved the turkey dilemma, right? But I did invest in some cameras, so if it happens again this Thanksgiving, we're Johnny on the spot.
You got 3 months to prepare here before the serial killer strikes again.
That's right.
All right. Well, Mr. Artz, did I miss anything? Are there any news stories that we did not have in the notes you would like to discuss?
Nope.
All right.
Nope. But I would say based upon timing, Zach gets a hall pass. No calling him. I will give you a challenge though for a future episode, whether I'm on or not. I cannot release my intrigue of your story regarding your whatever was going on with the Forsyth County Sheriff.
All right.
So you teased that in a very early episode, and it's never, like you said, we'll get to it. And now my fear is we're weeks away from football picking up, and we still have, multiple guests to interview for their positions. So I don't know where that's going to work in. I'm afraid I'm going to have to wait all the way until January of next year.
I'm building it block by block,
okay.
Tim. I want to make sure it's an ironclad story. No ambiguity like the Forsyth County News over here. His phone, his job.
Gotcha.
I'm going to be precise when I get to that story, but it's coming. It's
All right.
coming. I got some notes. I actually, I think I can say this. I reached out to the FBI to see if I could get access to some of the recordings that were involved, and was flatly denied by the FBI that I did not have a journalistic interest. What was that? I have to go find the exact words. They basically said, "We don't think you're a journalist." Fair enough. FBI. But it's still on the docket. I'm working that one. It's a slow burn.
Okay. Is there not a Freedom of Information Act? You have to be a journalist to get that information?
I did a FOIA request. Now, I will say when you do these FOIA requests, there's different options for how you can submit them. And I submitted them as a journalist, saying that I had a journalistic interest in the case. There was a non-journalist submission method where you're just like, I'm a citizen. I just want to know what's going on. Now, between me and you, truthfully, I submitted as a journalist, partially as a podcast. This could be considered media, right? I don't think I was lying about it, but it was also free. There was a different pricing structure. Like if you're just some random citizen, there was some additional cost. I have to go back and look at the details. So I'm like, I'm going to try it this way first. And if it gets shut down, maybe I can just do the, interested citizen. There, I would think I have every right. I'm a Forsyth County citizen. This occurred in Forsyth County while I was living here. So yeah, I'm still holding on to it.
Well, I mean, but now that the show's rolling in all the money, you can,
it's true.
You can take it out of the inbound income, then it becomes a show expense.
Yeah.
Write it off as a tax.
I'll put it on the corporate card. All right. Well, Mr. Artz, it's been fantastic hanging out with you this Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon. Thank you for coming in and co-hosting with me this fine Sunday morning in the Wrong Way Roundabouts.
Thanks, you too.
Now we're singing this tune to avoid lawsuits. NFL execs got me quaking in my boots. Sorry, Sir Elton, it was just a joke. John and Andres don't want none of that smoke.